Hi guys, this is Jan Gustafsson for Chess24 and we're gonna have a look back at the defining game of the Zürich Chess Challenge. The tournament was dominated by Vishy, Anand and Hikaru Nakamura, who after everything was said and done met in a much discussed blitz tiebreak to conclude the tournament winner. What we're going to do in this video though is have a look at their classical game, which was played in round 4 of the tournament with long time control. Vishy Anand with the white pieces against Hikaru Nakamura. Those were the two guys that dominated the tournament. We haven't made a video on that game yet, so it is high time to do so. Vishy Anand with white starts with 1d4. I've mentioned this before. He's become one of the best, if not the best, 1d4 theoreticians out there, having done a lot of great work for his match against Magnus Carlsen. He's tough to deal with the black pieces nowadays. Hikaru Nakamura plays d5, and after c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e7, which tells us two things. He wants to play the classical Queen's Gambit declined, but he does not want to allow the line with knight f6, cd, ed, bishop g5, which was played by Vladimir Kramnik against Vishy Anand in this very tournament. So instead he plays bishop e7, and after knight f3, knight f6, we get a position Anand has had some success with recently. He plays the move bishop f4, and the one game he won against Magnus Carlsen came out of this very line. Castles e3, knight bd7. He repeats the line that is considered the most critical nowadays, the space-grabbing c5, which is also the move he beat Carlsen with. White players have tried all kinds of moves over the years here. a3 was en vogue at one point. Queen c2 was considered to be a nice move. Bishop e2 is a move Levon Aronian made very popular. But nowadays c5, grabbing space, is considered the only critical option left. Magnus Carlsen tried his luck with c6 here. Lost without a chance, got killed right out of the opening. So no surprise that Nakamura does not repeat that. Between this tournament and the Carlsen match, Vishy Anand actually had this position again, and Fabiano Caruana went for the move knight e4 against him here, which is also very interesting. Anand did not manage to get an advantage in that game, but later on Anish Giri would show how to put a bit more pressure on black in this line if you're interested in the ins and outs. After c5 instead, Nakamura plays the traditional main move, the move knight h5, which he has experience with on both sides of the board. Bishop to d3 is the main line here. In their Armageddon Blitz game, Anand would experiment with a move bishop to e5, but bishop d3 is the main setup. White allows black to capture on f4, and after e takes f4, he's saying, okay, you might have doubled my pawns and gained the two bishops, but I have a very strong grip on the center and on the queen side, and I will try to make my space advantage count. I'm not going to allow you any breaks, and you have a problem with your bishop on c8. So those are the factors that are in play here. Of course, this line has been seen countless times at the very highest level, so both these guys know what they're doing. b6, b4, a5, a3, all of this is theory. White trying to hold on to his pawn chain. c6, castles, queen c7, useful little intermediate move, attacking the pawn on f4, forcing white to go g3, and now black goes for the move bishop a6, exchanging his passive bishop against the white bishop. The theoretical debates in this position have focused on the line bishop takes a6, rook takes a6, queen to e2, rook f to a8, and the move b5, with white trying to make something happen here, but it seems like nowadays the top players have analyzed the position after c takes b5 in enough detail that they know that they can hold it. Been many games, check them out for yourself if you're interested. Anand, who of course has spent time on this position before his Carlsen match, during his Carlsen match, goes for a different approach, the positional rook to e1. He's not trying to win by immediately breaking through, but instead by maintaining his grip on the position. Rook to e1, bishop to f6, and king to g2. King to g2 is the real novelty. Interestingly, Nakamura had this very positioned on the board with the white pieces. A couple of years ago, he went for the move bishop c2 against Peter Heine Nielsen. Went on to win that game, but it did not get him any advantage. The black bishop on a6 is too active. So king g2, once again, played in the same spirit. He's trying to hold the structure. At the same time, this is very computer-inspired because it sets a nice little trap, which Nakamura sees through. Nakamura played the move bishop d3, also continuing to play positionally. He could have played tactically with bc5, bc5, knight takes c5, d takes c5, and bishop takes c3, which at first sight looks winning for black. Isn't he up a pawn already and gonna pick up an exchange? Not quite, because white has a move bishop takes h7, check. Now king h7 is no good because of queen c2 check followed by queen c3, and white is just better. And if black goes king h8, this is where the computer comes into play. It points out the very strong move knight to h4, planning queen h5. Once again, king h7, queen c2 doesn't help. And if g6, bishop g6, white comes out on top after, let's say, fg, knight g6, king g8, knight f8, rook f8, rook takes e6. The white attack is too strong. Black king lacks protection. So this was a little trap set along the way while white was just playing useful moves, rook e1, king g2, trying to get a grip or keep his grip on the position. Bishop d3, queen d3, Nakamura plays positionally, and white is now planning to slowly go h4 and either make something happen on the king side. Sometimes he's intending to go knight e5, forcing black to exchange things, but first he has to stabilize matters on the queen side. Sometimes you go rook b1, sometimes you go rook c1, sometimes cb6 is an option. So play is complicated. White is trying to make a space advantage count. Black is trying to provoke a concession from white or to occupy the a-file with the heavy pieces. Rook fb8 surprised me at first. I thought the natural way to play here was rook a7, planning to go rook a8, trying to claim the a-file. But the problem that there is after, let's say, rook ec1, this is a precise move, rook fa8, is that white does not allow the opening of the a-file, instead goes cb6, queen b6, and b5, and it turns out the black rooks are not ideally placed to do battle there. So rook fb8 is directed against these types of ideas and is probably a good move by Nakamura. Anand continues with h4, as mentioned, this is useful. And here Nakamura surprised me a little bit. His move might be good, it's just very non-standard in these situations. The move queen to a7. Once again, standard play would be rook to a7, and then taking it from there. Well, b takes c5 was also a very valid option, and after b takes c, go rook b3, first a4, and try to use the b file. But Nakamura goes for the move queen to a7, which says I'm threatening a takes b4, followed by queen takes a1, and I want you to parry that threat and remove your rook. And if you do so with, let's say, rook a b1, you've had to abandon the a-file, and now you have a choice. You could even go queen c7, intending ab and rook a3. But Anand says, you know what, I don't think a takes b is a real threat, and he plays the move knight to e2. I'm suspecting, because Anand was also hinting at something like that, that he was still in his home preparation here. Nakamura said, okay, I was bluffing, I'll go g6 and see what you do. He was very upset after the game that he did so and wished he had replaced this move with actually executing his threat by takes, takes, takes. Now materially this is good for black, who gained 2 rooks for a queen. The problem, or the question there is if the move b5 is any good for white, an immediate breakthrough while black is not coordinated, trying to get to the c6 pawn. Nakamura was giving the lines c takes b, c6, knight f8, queen takes b5, and rook to a7, planning to capture this pawn with rook c7, rook c8. It's not so clear. If you switch on a computer in this situation, it gives the very nice move f5, clearing the f4 square for the knight. Let's say rook to c7, knight to f4. Oh no, sorry, knight to e5, even more precise. And rook c8 runs into the troublesome knight to d7. All this is very concrete, but it seems to work for white. Rook c6, knight f6, gf, knight f4. Even though black is serious material up with 2 rooks and a pawn for a queen, he is having trouble with his king side. And knight h5 in the air, this knight being passive, it seems like white is actually coming out on top here. This line could and should be analyzed further. It might be relevant theoretically. Probably black had to go for something like this. Instead, after g6, Anand managed to more or less stabilize and get the setup he wanted. Now he went rook a b1, and there is nothing big happening on the a file. A takes b was played. Queen a3 can be parried with rook b3. White manages to keep his structure intact and his space advantage as well. Nakamura played queen a2, threatening rook a3. Anand just went rook ec1, and now if rook a3, white goes queen to d1, and it turns out that black has managed to trap his own queen on a2. Let's say b takes c5, rook c2, all of a sudden this queen has nowhere to go. So the black activity didn't yield to much, and after rook ec1, he also has to start worrying a little bit about his c6 pawn. Nakamura decided to release the tension here with b takes c5. b5 might look logical, closing the queen side, but that always has a problem. After a later knight to e5, if this gets exchanged and white recaptures with a d pawn, that the knight from d4 can put pressure on this construction. So b5 tends to be a mistake in these types of position, but bc also has a bit of a problem, because after bc, white might gain the b file and especially access to the b6 square, as we'll see in the game. h5, another move Nakamura was not very happy with after the game. It weakens the g6 and e6 squares a little bit, and it makes it harder for black in the structure that ensues with a white pawn on e5 to break this with f6. However, it wasn't easy anymore already, because if you don't go h5, white will go h5, and then possibly put this pawn on h6, also creating some unpleasant problems on the king side. So h5, more of a choice between two evils. Now Anand has achieved the setup he wants, and he goes for the move knight to e5, clarifying the situation. Black once again faces a choice which minor piece he wants to keep. He decides to keep the bishop. One problem with bishop e5, as pointed out by the players as well, was after fe, rook b1, rook to b8, rook takes b8, knight takes b8, white has the very instructive knight to f4, hinting at knight sacrifices on g6 or e6, and if king to g7, white can break through. He goes g4, h takes g, and h5, and the black pieces are too far away from the king side to help their own monarch. After g5, white wins with a nice knight takes e6, f takes e, queen g6 check, king f8, and h6, queening the h-pawn. So those were the dangers Nakamura was already dealing with here. Instead, after knight e5, he went for knight takes e5, f takes e, and kept this bishop. He put it on g7, which is helpful defending the king. Has the drawback, it doesn't keep an eye on the b6 square. Bishop d8 was the alternative, but it was also no picnic. This king is left a little bit alone, and white once again had ideas with knight f4, g4, h5, or knight f4, knight e6. So the black position was already not pleasant to play here. Bishop g7, the next move I didn't like that much. I did like the move rook b6 a lot, occupying this outpost, because black can't really take after cb6. This pawn is too strong. Therefore, he went rook c8. He had to abandon the b file and go passive, which already shows that white has managed to overtake the initiative completely here. This move I didn't like too much, the move knight to c3. I thought knight f4 was very strong, once again hinting at these sacrifices, deploying that knight on the king side. And if bishop h6, there's rook c2, queen a7. You can already take here or here with a serious initiative. But Anand wanted to get this knight to work on the queen side, where it will play a good role as well. After queen a7, rook b1, white can just increase the pressure slowly. Queen d7, rook b4, that's what he does. Bishop h6, knight a4. This knight is on its way to b6. Queen d8, rook a6, another very nice move, making way for the other rook to go to b7 and trying to exchange one defender of the c6 pawn. King g7, rook b7. The white initiative is becoming very serious here, and this knight has found a way into the black camp. Rook takes a6, queen takes a6. This position might already be impossible to defend by passive means, so Nakamura goes for his last chance to open up the king side and create counterplay with the move g5, which is a pretty decent last chance. Computer, at first he says h takes g is good for white here. Queen takes g5, rook f7, king f7, queen takes c8. But this position, if you face it over the board, black goes queen f5, all of a sudden it looks like he has serious counterplay. Check on e4 is in the air, h5 is in the air, bishop d2, bishop e1 is in the air. This is not something you want to go for if you're Vishy Anand. And Vishy found a very nice human clean solution here, the move queen to e2. Looks like a step back from this dominating post, but the point is queen takes h5 is a big threat, and black has to go g4 to parry that. And by going g4, he gives up the chance of opening files on the king side. Therefore, g4, now that the king side is closed, the white queen just returns to a6 and says, okay, you got no counterplay anymore. I'll go back to my business of annoying you on the queen side with knight b6, queen a7, rook b6, many options. Nakamura doesn't give up yet and finds one last resource for counterplay, queen g8, intending to activate the queen on this diagonal. But Anand was ready for that, goes knight to b6, stopping rook a8, attacking this rook, and after rook f8 we see another mode to deploy that knight, knight to d7. Now if this knight makes it to f6, that would be pretty deadly. Not only would it stop queen h7, it would also pick up the h5 pawn and the black position would just collapse. So Nakamura tried queen h7 as his last chance, giving up an exchange and hoping with this queen to cause some damage. He had another interesting option that in the end fell short, but only by a hair. Rook a8, if white plays a very natural queen takes c6, black had a spectacular idea for counterplay. Rook to a2, knight comes to f6, and it looks like it's game over. His queen is hanging, queen takes e6 is a big threat. Looks like black can just resign, but instead of doing so, he should go for the move bishop e3. Fantastic blow. Knight takes g8, rook takes f2, and believe it or not, this bishop and rook coordinate well enough to give perpetual all by themselves. No way out for white. Vishy Anand had seen all that in fairness, however, and after rook a8 he pointed out the correct way to proceed, which is the move rook to a7. And after rook a7, queen a7, white is just in time to go knight to f6. Let's say queen h7, knight f6, queen d3, queen b8, and queen g8 check will follow and probably deliver checkmate. White is just first here. Instead, Nakamura tried his last-ditch effort of queen h7, but Anand had it all covered. He went knight takes f8, queen e4 check, king h2. Problem for black is he can't play a move like queen f3 because white would just go knight takes e6 check. Let's say king g8, and anything wins for white, but the most simple is something like rook b2, just stopping the black threat with serious material up. Said Nakamura tried king takes f8, and he would only need a move or two to generate serious chances on the king side still, but it's white to move, and after rook b8 check, king g7, queen c8, turns out once again white comes first, and there is no defense anymore. King g6 was tried, and queen to h8. This is the final nail in the coffin. Turns out there's nothing black can do. Let's say queen f3, rook g8 check, king f5, and a very important move, queen h7, checkmate. Nice construction, but more than good enough to win the game. And Nakamura understood here he was out of resources for active play after queen h8, rook g8, queen h7 is just coming. He decided to resign. A very interesting game. It's hard to point out exactly where Nakamura went wrong. Some subtleties, maybe g6 was not right, maybe queen a7, but overall no clear mistakes, while Anand just showed a very, not completely new, but a very consistent strategic way to play this position with rook to e1, king g2, h4, not really going for any immediate breakthroughs, but just building up knight to e2, rook to c1, rook to b1, then knight e5, and he managed to win what I think is a textbook game and very important for anybody who wants to play this line with either side. Thanks for watching the video. Congratulations to both of these players for sharing the victory in the Zürich Chess Challenge. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the Chess24 YouTube channel and see you guys on chess24.com. Thanks for watching.